Hey guys, this is Communications, and welcome to my review/retrospective of the supernatural spectacular Ghostbusters. They're here to save the world. This is a custom DVD I made. I found this artwork online and I printed it off because I thought it was better than the actual collector's edition artwork, collector's series artwork. It's not terrible, but this was better, I thought. And, but I do like the original DVD. I mean, how can you not love the ghost? No ghost emblem repeated. Like that on that disc. It's really cool. But yeah, I watched the film again for the second time in a span of 2 months. So I watched it, last month. And then I watched it a month before that. And the second time, it was still just as enjoyable. Still just as much fun to watch. That's a testament of a great movie. In my opinion, this film is not only a great movie, it's an iconic film. I mean, think about it. T-shirts, people still wear Ghostbusters gear, wear T-shirts. You got conventions, you got people who actually think they are Ghostbusters, who say, yeah, I'm a part-time Ghostbuster. I'm the part of the Chicago Ghostbusters. So there are people who really go that in-depth with it. And it's a film that, as the generations go by, it just seems that it still just keeps picking up steam. It's a film that still is picking up a fan base, a movie that still is enjoyable, still finding its audience. New generations, from generation to generation to come, more people are loving Ghostbusters. Kids today are enjoying Ghostbusters. Some kids today might be that hipster kid who, think it's cool to hate on everything new and say it's a cheesy old movie and it's nowhere near as the good ones. The new ones today, I hope they remake it because everything, that is remade now is automatically better because of better effects. There are some people like that, but the majority of the people really enjoy this movie. And, that's great. It's great to see that even new generations can enjoy this film as much as the old generations enjoyed it. Now, this is going to be a review size retrospective. I know I did a long review of this before, but I felt the need to review it again. I wanted to review it again anyway before Harold Ramis's unfortunate passing. He passed away a week ago. It was tragic. It was, it was really sad. And he lost his battle with, I think it was a form of, it was like a nerve disease. So he lost a battle with this nerve disease that he had been dealing with for a while now. And he lost the battle and passed away. And it's really, really too bad. There's like a degenerative nerve condition or something that would attack your nerves. It sounded really horrible. And in many ways, Harold Ramis is not only a member of the Ghostbusters, he's Egon Spengler, but he's also one of the men who helped write the film. He's every bit as responsible as Dan Aykroyd was to creating the world of Ghostbusters and to writing the screenplay to a movie that is so memorable even to this day. And not only is he going to be remembered for his work in this film and in Ghostbusters 2, as Egon Spengler, he's going to be remembered for the work he did in Stripes and as a director, as for what he did with National Lampoon's Vacation. And he also, which is a great film. And in many ways, he is responsible for the modern day comedy. So, definitely, yeah, rest in peace, Harold Ramis. I can't say that enough. So, in a way, yeah, I wanted to do this in honor of Harold Ramis. And so, before I get into why I love this movie so much, and a little bit, overview of the plot, which is a plot everybody pretty much knows, but talk about some things about, the film that I like and why I like them. Talk about my personal experience with the film first, how I was introduced to it, and then I'm going to talk about behind the scenes. I'm going to go in depth on, behind the scenes of the film. Very interesting backstory behind this film. Excuse me. I had to sneeze for some reason. Don't know why. It's not one of those scenarios where I'm allergic to this movie's bullshit, because it's not bullshit. It's a great film. It's one of my favorite movies. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. I watched this religiously as a kid, along with the sequel. And that's how I was pretty much... It was interesting how I was introduced to it. really kind of shitty quality VHS rip of the film that was recorded off of cable back in the 90s. My parents, we had gotten a free trial of HBO, and we ended up keeping it for a while longer than we should have. And so we just didn't do anything until they finally figured it out. So until HBO figured out that we were basically using their channel for free, my mom recorded a bunch of stuff on VHS. And one of the films she recorded was Ghostbusters, because she really enjoyed that movie too. And so my mom is in many ways responsible for why I was introduced to this film, why I have such nostalgic vibes of this movie, because I grew up with it, because I'd watched that same VHS. I still have that VHS. I showed it in my other review of the film. And I can't find it. I don't know exactly where it is right now. It's probably in storage somewhere. Maybe you'll see it in one of my VHS collection videos. And it was on the same VHS as Home Alone 2. So, Ghostbusters and Home Alone 2. And Home Alone 2 hasn't held up as well for me, personally, as an adult now. But Ghostbusters holds up phenomenally well. It's a movie that stands the test of time and then some. And so I wore that tape out. That tape is in such bad shape right now. I'm just keeping it because it's for nostalgic purposes. It's, it's a memory that I'm holding on to. And I wore that tape out, man. It's barely even watchable right now. The quality is so shitty. But, I remember when I found it again, I did watch the movie again a while back on the same tape. Didn't matter if the quality was so bad, because it was just the memories associated with it. You could tell the quality was bad because I watched it so many times. I watched that tape over and over and over and over again. I'd come back from school and I'd watch Ghostbusters, or I'd watch the sequel. It was just the movies that I would watch a lot as a kid were Ghostbusters films. I didn't really grow up with the cartoon because I was too young. I remember Extreme Ghostbusters. That's all I remember. And I don't remember minding that show that much when I was able to catch it. I might have caught a few reruns of the real Ghostbusters, but I don't really remember much. But I remember this movie fondly. Such great memories associated with this film. So that's another reason why maybe it's one of my favorites, because I grew up with this movie. As much as you might want to say the nostalgia isn't a big, isn't a big reason why people love movies so much, nostalgia is part of a reason why. Because when you watch a film and it brings you back to your childhood and memories that you had, and you had fun with the film, you always can look back on that. It's a film that triggers those memories. And also what you watch and listen to when you're younger is pretty much what you like when you're an adult. Scientific studies have proven this. So like a good friend of mine, he watched Aliens and Die Hard and awesome movies when he was a kid, so that's the type of movies he likes. Same thing with me. I watched Ghostbusters a lot as a kid, and Goonies and Monster Squad and movies like that. And I was introduced to Die Hard at a young age by my mom too. My mom's awesome. I'm going to say it. My mom is awesome. And she introduced me to Ghostbusters and a lot of other movies. So she's in many ways responsible for, my love of film, as anybody is. So I definitely got to thank her for that. Not for bringing me into this world, but for also, introducing me to these awesome movies. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, if you grow up with these type of movies, that tends to be your taste in film when you're growing up. And I feel kind of bad for some kids today, because they don't have nearly as awesome movies as films like this, timeless classics that are going to be remembered for years to come. I hate to say it, Dark Knight is never going to be as memorable or as timeless as this movie's going to be. It isn't. It's just going to be considered a really good Batman movie. It's not going to be ever considered the phenomenon, the iconic film that Ghostbusters is and still is. Ghostbusters was and still is to this day. It's not going to happen. As much as some Dark Knight fans might think it is, it's not happening. I guarantee that will not have the legacy that this movie already has. Because it's unique. That's the thing about Ghostbusters, I think, that I think nowadays, it's not just a fun movie, but it's a different film, and it's a good idea, and it was a different idea. It was an original idea at the time, and it was a silly idea, but it worked. It was a film that managed to balance, it found this perfect storm, this perfect balance of casting, of writing, of editing, of music, of, everything. Just this perfect storm, came in with this movie and just created this iconic, great film in a way that, in ways that it just captivated an entire nation. This movie held the top spot for 7 weeks straight. It got knocked out by Purple Rain, and then the week after after Purple Rain had its opening weekend, Ghostbusters took number one again. And then 6 weeks after, it took number one again in the box office. What kind of movie does that nowadays? That will keep number one in the box office slot for 7 weeks in a row, lose it, and then get it back, and then, even 6 weeks afterwards, still get the number one box office spot again. This movie made $523 million adjusted to today's inflation. Today's dollars, $523 million just for this movie alone. That's an insanely successful movie. It became the most successful movie due to a re-release that it had the year after the film came out. It became the most successful comedy of the 1980s. It beat out Beverly Hills Cop. The movie that eventually in the year 1984 made more money than it did. And that's a movie that people went and saw over and over again. And I don't blame them because it's such a fucking great time. I use the F word on purpose there because it really is. It's such a great time at the movies. It's a type of film that I wish I would see in theaters today. Ghostbusters. I wish I could see a movie like this in theaters today. I'm glad I did. I actually did see this in theaters when it had the re-release in 2011. Wasn't the best quality. It was a Blu-ray just shown on the big screen. But hey, it was still Ghostbusters. I can still say I saw Ghostbusters in the theater, which is a great memory. I'm glad I was able to see it. I was just bummed that there weren't that many people in the theater. It was like barely anybody in the theater. And I thought it was going to be some fun experience with Ghostbusters fans, and we're going to be a very enjoyable time. But it was an enjoyable time, but it just wasn't as immersive as I thought it was going to be. I thought there was going to be more people there, and there weren't. And that's really too bad, to be honest. That there weren't that many people at the showing of Ghostbusters that I went and saw, 2011. That's really too bad. It kind of sucks, to be honest. So, but, hey, I'm glad I saw it, though. I'm glad I saw it. Just like I saw Back to the Future 2 and 3 in the big screen at the Kick and Cedar where they showed the Blu-rays. But still, I got to see those movies in a theatrical experience, and that was great. It's a memory. These are memories I'll hold on to. The fact that I was able to see them in the theater. That's great. It's cool. And so yeah, Ghostbusters, big part of my childhood. That's how I was introduced to it, was through that beat up old worn tape that I still have to this day. That also had Home Alone 2 on it, and I watched it tons of times. And as a kid, there were jokes I didn't get until I got older. So there's some jokes like I didn't even know what menstruating was when it come to that one scene in the film, and the whole thing where Venkman's talking about, Mr. Stay Puft. He's like, he's a sailor, he's in New York, we get this guy laid, we should have no problem. I didn't get the laid reference until now. So it's not just a kid's movie, it's definitely a film that's for adults. It's a movie that is able to appeal to all audiences, to kids and adults. Like, I heard maybe the Lego movie is like that, and I should check that out, but Ghostbusters is just one of my all-time favorite movies. This movie, I don't find anything wrong with it. I find it to be a pretty close to perfect when it comes to a comedy and comes to a sci-fi comedy. I mean, it's a science fiction fantasy comedy. It does a great job. Like I said, perfect storm with everything, but also the way that it's able to balance the two elements of comedy and drama. There's actually dramatic weight to the sequences. Like when the world's about to end, it's no laughing matter. There's actual weight to it. And when you're supposed to get a laugh, you get a laugh. It's a rare occurrence. It's not as easy as you think it is to have a movie like this where the comedy doesn't completely dominate the dramatic weight of the scenario. And that's another thing that's so great about this movie. It actually feels like, oh shit, the world's gonna end, and we need the Ghostbusters to stop them. Shit's going down, and it's suspense and stuff like that. Genuinely scary scenes. A scene where Dana Barrett gets attacked by the terror dogs in her couch and dragged into the netherworld, and the Zool's netherworld, and gets possessed. That's an intense scene. Even as an adult, I've seen that scene a million times, and it still makes me cringe. It's a really well shot sequence. It's scary. It's scarier than half the fucking horror movies I've seen today. And this isn't even a straight up horror film. So yeah. This film achieves a really great mix of the two, of drama and comedy, and also, it has dramatic weight. The moments that need to be big moments, the moments that need to be taken seriously in this film, you take them seriously. In the moments that are funny, you laugh. It's a novel concept. There's a lot of movies lately that either choose to just be too serious when they should be having some fun with themselves, or too much of a joke. And they can't achieve that fine balance between the two. I said Ghostbusters is a classic. It's a film I could talk about for hours. And I probably will. I'm not saying how long it's going to be. I don't know how long it's going to be. It's going to be however long it's going to be, because this is one of my all-time favorite films. I could talk about this movie for hours easily. Easily talk about this film for hours. But anyway, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a look at this list that I found of trivia, which I thought was interesting about behind the scenes, the making of the film, and just read it off to you guys and give you my thoughts on it. And then I'm going to talk about the plot and go overview the plot real quick, and then talk about, once more, why I love the film so much, why it works, why it's a great movie, why it still is a classic film to this day, why it's an icon, not only a timeless classic, great movie, but it's also an iconic film. So anyway, here we go. The whole backstory of Ghostbusters. In 1982, producers Ivan Reitman, Joe Medichuk, Michael C. Gross were planning to make a film of the sci-fi novel The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Douglas Adams, the author of Hitchhiker's Guide, wrote 3 drafts for them per his contract. In this occasion, Medichuk and Gross were considering Bill Murray or Dan Aykroyd to play Ford Perfect, a character in his novel, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But then Aykroyd sent them his idea for this movie, and then they decided to do it instead. And I thought it was interesting. They decided to do that instead of Hitchhiker's Guide. Dan Aykroyd's original title for the film was Ghost Smashers. Yeah, Ghost Smashers does not have the same ring to it as Ghostbusters. Ghost Smashers sounds like some shitty 80s punk band to me. It really does. Almost none of these scenes were filmed as scripted, and in fact, almost all of the scenes had at least 1 or 2 ad-libs. Most of Bill Murray's lines are ad-libs. That shows how talented and supremely talented these actors were. How Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, these guys, they were experienced in improvisation with their times on SNL or Second City TV. And it shows in this film. All genuinely funny. These guys are genuinely funny. These aren't actors that are only funny if they have funny people writing for them. These are genuinely funny actors. And it shows on the screen. And you can also tell that these characters, these actors, they love being together. And not only can you tell that these actors love being in this movie and love what they're doing, but you can tell that everybody involved with this film, from the crew, from the cast, from the writers, from the producers, from the director, from the editor, from the music supervisor, from everybody down the line, they are loving this project that they're working on. And you can see that love shown in this film. You can see their effort. You can see their true love of the project that they're working on just seeping through every film cell of this movie. Every second of this film is just seeping with love and devotion to the project that they're working on. There's nothing is half-assed. Nothing looks like they didn't give a shit. No one looks like they're just sleepwalking through the role because they want a paycheck. They genuinely love what they are doing, and that just is infectious. It's infectious for the audience. You love it too because you're having such a great time, and I can't imagine how much fun it must have been to be on the set of this movie back in '84. To see these funny guys just being naturally funny, off when the cameras aren't running, and just being naturally funny and just really enjoying themselves, and you're enjoying yourself along with them. It just had to been a blast. It really had to have been. And the only reason why there was even a Ghostbusters 2, was because Bill Murray and company, and Ivan Reitman, and Ernie, and Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis were hanging out and for lunch somewhere, And they just started talking about, hypothetically, about Ghostbusters 2, and it just snowballed, and they talked for hours, and they just realized that, hey, let's do it, it'd be fun. They decided to do Ghostbusters 2 because they thought it would be fun. Not because of a paycheck, not because they're going to get paid, not because, they're going to, do it because of the franchise rights, because they know it's a profitable franchise, not because it's a name people are recognize, because they thought it would be fun. How often does that happen with a movie? That people team up and are like, let's do a sequel, because it'd be fun. It's great. It's wonderful. Because they decided to do the sequel, because they thought it'd be fun to do, shows how much they enjoyed filming the first film. And yeah, I'm just, like I said, it's just infectious. You see it just having these naturally funny guys being naturally funny. It's like you're a fly on the wall with these hilarious guys just being funny, and it's great. It's just really great stuff. It's wonderful to watch. And that adds to the whole natural aspect of the film, the whole natural feel of watching the movie. It doesn't feel artificial. It is partly because they're ad-libbing things, and they're doing such a great job. On the set, Dan Aykroyd referred to the Slimer ghost as the ghost of John Belushi. The role of Peter Venkman was originally written for John Belushi. Bill Murray only agreed to do the movie on the condition that Columbia finance a remake of The Razor's Edge, a 1946 film of the same name with him as the star. The remake was made in the same year, in 1984, and then Bill Murray decided to, be in Ghostbusters. I remember seeing The Razor's Edge once and it wasn't my cup of tea. Maybe I'll give it a look some other time. But, I'm glad, okay? They did the remake so he could be in this movie. Great. So Bill Murray could play the role that I believe he was born to play. Pretty much, I think all of the actors in this film, remember the whole line in the film where Bill Venkman's all like, call it fate, call it karma, call it destiny. That's kind of how I think the actors who played the Ghostbusters, were in this movie. They were destined to be Ghostbusters. It's like fate intervened and pulled strings to get these actors at the peak of their careers, at the perfect moment, at the perfect time, to be in this film and to make such a great movie for generations of moviegoers to enjoy for years to come. And yeah, I do believe that these actors were destined to be in these roles. That Ernie Hudson was destined to become Winston, and that spiraled over and got him roles in films like Leviathan years afterwards. Dan Aykroyd was destined to be Ray, a character that is beloved and one of his most memorable film role, without a doubt. His most memorable film role is Ray Stantz. Bill Murray is destined to become Venkman. My opinion, my favorite role he's ever done. He's done great in other movies like Scrooge, and he was good in Groundhog Day and Stripes, but my favorite Bill Murray role is without a doubt Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters. So he's destined. I think all of these guys were destined to be in this film, and all the strings were pulled, and things happen for a reason. And like Bill Murray says, I believe things happen for a reason. I believe we were destined to get thrown out of this dump. And of course Ray's like, well, for what purpose? To go into business for ourselves. So that's how I believe they were destined to be in this movie. The original premise for Ghostbusters had three main characters: John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Eddie Murphy. They fought ghosts in SWAT-like suits using wands instead of guns. The ghost named Slimer was known as Onion Head, and at the end of the movie, the Ghostbusters businesses were all over the United States. John Candy was also slated to play Lewis. However, with Belushi's death and characters backing out, the script was rewritten and new actors were cast. It's interesting to see the original premise was completely different from what the final film ultimately became. Chevy Chase turned down the role of Dr. Peter Venkman. He claimed that the script in the movie wasn't the original script, and in the original script, it was very dark and very scary, and a lot more scary. So Chevy Chase saw that the original version of the script was scarier and darker, and understandably he turned that down. But he's thinking, like, if he saw the script that they actually used in the film, he might have taken the role. And I'm glad, like I said, fate intervened. Things happen for a reason. Chevy Chase turned this down for a reason, because Bill Murray, this is really big role, and arguably his breakout role. He did a good job in Stripes, and that was a hit too, but this was a box office smash. And this established him as an A-lister, as a very viable lead for comedy films. So he was definitely, like strings were pulled, fate intervened, and Chevy Chase turned it down, and Bill Murray took it. Dan Aykroyd's original version of the script also began with the Ectomobile flying out of the Ghostbusters headquarters, but director Ivan Reitman suggested that it would be better to show how the team got started. Good. That is a better idea. Seems like almost everything that Ivan Reitman suggested was better than what Dan Aykroyd had in mind, which makes me worried about what his idea for Ghostbusters 3 was. Probably wasn't that great. Not saying Dan Aykroyd is a shitty writer, I'm just saying, there's some things that, needed to be rewritten or redone, because not just having that Ectomobile fly out of our headquarters, me in the movie, and being like, what's going on? I think they did it the right way. Showing them, get fired and figuring things out on their own. According to Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis in the DVD commentary, and Dan Aykroyd's original rough draft of the movie, the story was going to take place in the future, and that there would be teams of Ghostbusters, like there are paramedics and firefighters, explaining that this is an explanation of why their headquarters is in a firehouse. And according to Reitman, such a film would cost at least $300 million in 1984 dollars. So Harold Ramis was brought in to rewrite the script and bring it into modern times. Gozer was originally going to be played by Paul Reubens, yet Gozer was going to be played by Pee Wee Herman, who turned down the role. In the original script, Gozer took on the form of Ivo Shandor, the Ghost Building's architect, who started the original Gozer cult, who resembled a pale, slender, unremarkable man in a business suit. Fate intervened there and made sure that didn't happen, because that would have been a letdown. That would have been a joke. That would have been, I think it was good they took it a little bit seriously, and Gozer was creepy. Gozer was a freaky little, a freaky little minx. And can you imagine, like, he's not going to be dressed like Pee Wee Herman, but can you imagine that image? The unearthly doors open, and it's Pee Wee Herman. Like, and what? I know, it was like Bicycle or some shit, and I'm not going to do a Pee Wee Herman impression. I tried to do one in a video I tried to do earlier about this movie, and it was terrible. So I'm not doing it. I cannot do a Pee Wee Herman impression to save my life, so I'm not doing it. I don't want to embarrass myself. So anyway, but yeah, can you imagine that? Pee Wee Herman, doors open up and it's Pee Wee. Come on. It's a good thing that didn't happen. When Venkman mentions the time Spengler tried to drill a hole in his head, Spengler's response, "That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me," was actually ad-libbed by Harold Ramis. And actually, I missed it. I missed something. I'll get back to that later. Sorry. More stuff about Gozer. The demonic voice of Dana/Zool was performed by director Ivan Reitman. Yeah, Ivan Reitman, was the guy who did the voice of Zool. Wow, when I heard that, I was like, that's interesting. The voice of Gozer was provided by Patty Edwards. Gozer is based on several things. There's a Gozer Chevrolet dealership in upstate New York, and Gozer was also related to a documented haunting in England, during which the name Gozer appeared mysteriously throughout the house, written on walls and things. Creepy. That's some really spooky shit. I don't want to see Gozer written on my wall. That's pretty freaky. That's some real life ghost paranormal phenomenon associated with the film. That was really interesting. In rehearsal, Bill Murray, Venkman, teased Yugoslav model Slatsvia Jovan, Gozer, about a pronunciation of the line "choose and perish," which sounded to him like Jews and berries. And he'd say, there are no Jews and berries here. That's just perfect. That's how much fun it must have been on that set. Did you imagine that? All those funny guys hanging out, just being naturally funny and hearing that shit, ribbing on each other, ribbing on the cast. It must have been a blast. There are no Jews and berries here. The role of Louis Tully was originally written for John Candy. John Candy quit the role of Louis Tully because his ideas for the character were being rejected. According to Ivan Reitman in the DVD commentary, among Candy's suggestions, he wanted the character to have a German accent and to have a pair of Schnauzer dogs. No one felt the German accent was appropriate for the character, and since there was dog imagery in the film already, like the terror dogs, they felt having Tully own dogs was too much. So John Candy quit early in production, and Rick Moranis was cast at the last minute. Candy and Moranis are both veterans of SCTV, along with Harold Ramis. I'm glad, Schnauzer dogs, the German accent is way off, and that doesn't work, so, I love John Candy, he's great, I miss him too, may he rest in peace, but they made the right choice with Louis Tully, not with Harold Ramis, with Rick Moranis. And this is another film that was a breakthrough role for Rick Moranis, helped him get other roles later in his career. The character of Winston was originally written to be a guard at the Ghostbusters Firehouse. Also in earlier drafts of the script, Winston was the one who conjured up the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Eddie Murphy was the first choice to play Winston. He chose to do Beverly Hills Cop instead. I'm glad he did. It might have been interesting to see what he would have brought to the film, but I'm totally glad he chose to be Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop, because that's my favorite Eddie Murphy movie, and I'm really glad he did that. That's the breakout role for Eddie Murphy. That's what broke him out and made him able to do movies like The Golden Child, and eventually later in his career, films like Metro and Beverly Hills Cop 2, So I'm glad that happened, that he chose instead to do Beverly Hills Cop. Had Eddie Murphy accepted the role of Winston, the character was actually meant to appear in more of the film. He was to have joined the team much earlier, and it would have been he who was slimed at the hotel. When Murphy declined the role, the script was rewritten to have him appear about halfway through the film. Christopher Walken, John Lithgow, Christopher Lloyd, and Jeff Goldblum were all considered for the role of Dr. Egon Spangler. Christopher Walken, no. Don't see it working at all. John Lithgow, not really. I think he's a bit too old at that point in his career. Christopher Lloyd, no, don't see it. Jeff Goldblum's the one that I could kind of see it, but I'm totally glad Harold Ramis chose to do it instead. Michael Keaton, he also turned down the role of Egon Spangler, as well as Dr. Venkman. Interesting. I love me some Michael Keaton. He's a good comedian as well. I don't know if he's as good as an improvisational comedian as the rest of the guys were. I don't know if he'd be able to come up with the stuff on the fly as well as the rest of the guys did. But it would have been interesting to see what Michael Keaton would have brought to Ghostbusters. I gotta be honest. But I'm glad things happened the way they did. Like I said, fate intervened. And, things happened for a reason. Harold Ramis actually had no intention of starring in the film, only writing it. But he decided to star in the film as Dr. Egon Spangler after he felt he was the best person suited for the role. And that's great. That's really great. That really shows the kind of person Harold Ramis is. That, he decided, this is perfect. I'm perfect for this role. I'm going to lobby for it. And Ivan Reitman gave him a shot. And he ran with it and did a great job. And created and delivered a performance that is memorable. That is iconic. That'll be remembered for years to come. And in this film, when I was watching it again, it was bittersweet because knowing that Harold Ramis had passed away. And I focused a lot more on Egon's performance and realized how great he was, how great Harold Ramis was in this role. How, honestly, in a lot of ways, he's kind of the structure that keeps the team together. Like, Bill Murray is the hot shot, Dan Aykroyd's the heart. Winston, you could say, is the muscle, the brawn. But Egon's the brains and the structure of the team. And he's the reason why they saved the world, because he's the one that came up with the idea for them to cross the streams. So if it wasn't for Egon, Ghostbusters wouldn't have saved the world from Gozer, because he's the one that convinced everybody to cross the streams. So you really notice how important Egon's role is to the team in this film. And how important Harold Ramis was to the success of this movie, because he rewrote the script and made it to modern times, which is one of the reasons why it was probably greenlit eventually. Because the original script as it was just way too expensive and it wouldn't work. So he rewrote it and added some things here and there. And he also added his own ad-libbing stuff to it. Like I said earlier, when I messed up and flipped the right page. When he says, when Venkman mentions the time Spengler tried to drill a hole in his head, Spengler's response, that would have worked if you hadn't stopped me, was ad-libbed by Harold Ramis. So Harold Ramis, he ran with the improvisation, with the best of them. So he added with his own ad-libs along with Dan and Bill. And, they're just a great team. They had chemistry right from the get-go. There were some reviewers I saw, some people like Janet Maslin or some New York Times back in the day said they had no chemistry. The only one that was really had good was Bill Murray, and none of the people, they didn't seem to have any chemistry. I was like, what? They had no chemistry? They had tons of chemistry. I totally bought that they were friends. I totally bought they'd known each other for years. I thought they were just pals, best friends, hanging out, and create a ghostbusting business. And it hits big, and they saved the world. That's how I felt about this movie. I totally bought their chemistry. I don't know what she was looking at. Harold Ramis was great in this movie. He was great beforehand, many times that I'd seen it before, but I noticed his greatness a lot more after his passing. And even before his passing, like the time that I watched before I knew he passed away, I started to recognize his performance more, and his reactions to the ghosts, the scenes that were happening were really great. And really, really great, cool reaction shots. And, excuse me for a second, taking a little break because I got a light that's going on and it's flickering like crazy and it's like driving my eyes nuts. So I might edit this out, might not. We'll see. You might see a cut later, but I can't take it. I can't take looking at this thing. It's driving me nuts. It's flickering all over the goddamn place. Okay. All right. Lighting might be a little bit different now, but I couldn't take it. I can't take it. It's flickering like all over the goddamn place. I'm seeing it in the corner of my eyes and making my eyes twitch. So I wouldn't be able to finish the review, folks, if I had to keep seeing that flickering. But anyway, back to the backstory here. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was originally supposed to come up out of the water right next to the Statue of Liberty to get a contrast of size. But the scene was too hard to shoot. And of course, later on in the series, in Ghostbusters 2, you would see the Statue of Liberty get a reference. And, fuck it, I'm doing it. Just shut off the light. I know it's not the best lighting again, but I shut it off. It's flickering all over the goddamn place. I mean, nuts. Causing mass hysteria. Anyway, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man suit costed approximately $20,000 a piece. And there were 3 suits made, and all 3 of them were destroyed during filming. So that's $60,000 that they spent on these suits. And some people say they don't look as good nowadays. I'm like, it's in film from 1984. Of course, when you blow it up to HD and high def, it's not going to look the greatest. But I thought it still looked pretty damn good for a 1984 film. A lot of the effects, the ghost effects, still look great by Richard Edlund and Company. Fantastic. Fantastic. Richard Edlund and Boss Films, who did the ghost effects for this movie, are still some of the best ghost effects I've ever seen on film. The cloud tank effects at the end when the clouds are parting and stuff like and turning purple are more effective than anything I've ever seen in CGI trying to do the same effect. The ghost scenes like more effective than anything I've ever seen in CGI try to do the same effect. That's why I don't understand. I don't understand why practical effects are getting glossed over, pushed in the back, and CGI is getting pushed in the forefront and used ahead of practical effects for certain things that should be practical. I'm sorry, animals, okay, alright, maybe CGI animals. But things that don't exist, like ghosts and monsters and creatures, they should be done with practical effects. Because I've yet to see one single movie with CGI, with a monster, with a creature, with a ghost, no matter what it is, that has looked nearly as effective or as realistic as a well-shot, well-edited, created, well-built practical effect. I haven't seen it. The ghost effects in this movie still hold up 30 years later. Better than like half the CGI effects. Better than all the CGI effects. I have not seen a single CGI effect ghost that has been nearly as realistic than anything that Richard Edlund and Company put together for this film. Not a single one. And I know they lost the Best Visual Effects Oscar in 2010. And I can understand 2010 was really great visual effects in its own right. And that's an understandable one that you might have lost to. But at least they got nominated for the effects for this film, and they deserved it. They did a great job with the effects. It's the other reason why the film works so well, because the effects are so well done. You know? So, yeah, I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand why CGI still keeps getting chance after chance after chance and not nearly being nearly as effective as effects from 30 years ago. I think it's time for Hollywood to get a fucking clue and start hiring these people that we're seeing on Sci-Fi Channel doing Jim Henson's Creature Shop Challenge and Face Off, and hire these people for actual movies in the theater instead of hiring some fucking geek behind a computer screen to start typing on his keyboard to create something, to reach some creature or whatever, because it's either you're cheap or you don't want a good product. I don't know what it is. I think it's cheap. I think Hollywood's just being fucking cheap. They're going a cheap route and don't want to hire artists and makeup effects artists and creature designers to create work for their films when they damn well should. Because this CGI shit is old. I'm down. I'm fucking sick of it. I'm sick of it. I see this shit. I see these really talented artists on Sci-Fi Channel working for Face Off, a reality show, and this new one, the Creature Shop, Jim Henson's Creature Shop Challenge, and then realizing that these really talented artists will be lucky if they ever get a chance to do a film. And that's a fucking crime. That's a fucking crime to me. And these people, these talented young artists, deserve better. They deserve to get that shot. Not saying that CGI guys aren't artists and they don't know what they're doing. They do. They're good. They're excellent as one of their own. It's not an easy job. But anything that they have put together doesn't even come anywhere close. I don't care. Rise of the Planet of the Apes don't come close to anything I've seen in Ghostbusters or any other practical effects I've seen in a film. Sure, there were shitty practical effects. It's because they have a low budget and they can't light it properly and they don't have everything they need to make it work. But when you have the budget, you have the time, and you have the artist behind it, you should do it. And Hollywood has them right now. They're on those reality shows on Sci-Fi Channel. They should be hiring them instead of these computer guys. Instead of hiring some computer company to do your CGI effects. Because it ain't cutting it anymore. I can still suspend my disbelief so much, and when I look at a movie like this that came out 30 years ago and its effects look better, and I believe it more than your CGI, your modern day technology, there's a fucking problem. So fix it. Give these people a shot. You know, I hope fate intervenes. I hope, things happen for a reason and something happens with CGI and it bottoms out and people get sick of it and they decide to go back to giving practical effects a chance again. It's a pipe dream. Never going to happen. And that's sad and it pisses me off. You know what the effect is? I'll tell you what the effect is. It's pissing me off. So yeah, that's what the effect of fucking practical effects getting pushed to the goddamn wayside for ineffective CGI is pissing me off. Keep the $5. I've had it. Anyway, yeah, so that's it for my little rant on practical effects versus CGI. Back to the backstory. In the marshmallow goo that was dumped, on everybody was actually shaving cream. More than 50 gallons was dumped on Walter Peck, William Atherton, almost knocking him to the ground. Yeah, it's a tough job. And in the DVD commentary, Ivan Reitman says he received a call from William Atherton complaining that the movie ruined his life. The character of Walter Peck was so hated that people would talk to Atherton as if they were giving the character Peck a piece of their minds. Apparently, more than once, physical fights had been started with Atherton in bars. That's too bad. That's really too bad. Cool it. Calm the fuck down. I know you're drunk and shit, but come on. He's a man. He's not Walter Peck in real life. Even if he is, it's uncalled for. Just don't do that. Give him a hand. Say you were a great asshole in that movie. That also shows that. But once again, that's something that shows the legacy of this movie. That it spans over to actual physical fights because they think that William Atherton is really, they hate his portrayal. He was such a great asshole in this movie that people actually took it against him and tried to get into fights with him in bars. That's the power of Ghostbusters. It actually bleeds and carries over into real life. That's insane. That's a powerful movie. That's an iconic film. That's the type of thing that happens with an iconic movie. It's not acceptable. I don't condone it, but it does show how overreaching the impact of this film is. The floating Sigourney Weaver special effect in the film is an actual physical effect, not an optical effect. The actress was put in a full body cast and attached to a post that was hidden in the curtains. According to the commentary, the effect came from director Ivan Reitman's Broadway experience. I'm glad I was finally figuring out how they did that, because every time I watch that scene where she's levitating off, 4 feet above the covers, I'm blown away. My mind was blown. I was like speechless. This looks real. It looks like she's actually possessed and levitated off the fucking ground. And they did it physically. That's why they didn't do it behind a damn green screen. They didn't, because and put in a CGI background, which you can spot a mile away. They did it practically, and that's something that I think a lot of films and special effects artists nowadays just don't understand. The idea that, because of CGI, the idea has been imprinted in their head that they can do anything and everything with just a computer, which is typing up some numbers and key quotas and whatever, and do anything and everything. Create physical environments with a computer. But in the 80s and films like this, they knew they had limitations. So then they knew that they had to be ingenious. They had to be creative. They had to think of ways to bend the rules and create something that would work and look great and look effective with what they had, because they had limitations. So they learned how to do and be great and do some of the best work imaginable with those limitations. Because CGI has no limitations, which I think it does, the idea that it's imprinted in people's heads that it doesn't have any limitations, in my opinion, is bullshit. Because if it doesn't look real, it's not worth it. It doesn't have any limitations. Yeah, you can create all these different environments. And you can create all this shit like an Avatar. And you can create CGI fire and water. But if it doesn't look real, why the fuck are you doing it? Why the fuck are you using it? Instead of actually building a physical fucking set and actually shooting in a real room, instead of behind a green screen, why aren't you doing that? Because it doesn't cost that much to build a fucking set. In fact, it should be cheaper now than it was back in the 80s. It's laziness. It's the only explanation I could think of. They're lazy. George Lucas was the prime example in the prequels. Star Wars prequels. Laziness. Sat on his ass. Watch people do shitty acting behind a fucking green screen. And if there is a Ghostbusters 3, which I don't want to see, it's going to be more of the fucking same. I guarantee you. They're not going to do practical effects. Proton packs probably practical, but the proton streams will be CGI. The ghosts will be CGI and look like shit. The ghostly environments will look like fucking shit and be CGI. If it was an animated movie like the video game, fine, you can do that. But when you have real life actors behind a green screen in what looks obviously like a fake ass video game environment, I'm sick of it. I see it way too goddamn much in movies, and I'm sorry, I'm not suspending my disbelief anymore to basically accept your bullshit, your laziness. It's not acceptable anymore to me. Step your game up, do better, because it doesn't work. Avatar wasn't exciting to me at all because I couldn't get into any of it because it was so fake. Fix it. Sure, there are some moments in this where you can tell it's a matte painting and so forth. But I take a matte painting any day of the week over some glossy looking CGI background, which maybe in a film like Gravity, great. Alfonso Cuarón and company did a great job with that. But shit like the Star Wars prequels, the latest fantasy films, like, what a Hercules with Kellen Lutz, the Twilight movies, the Hunger Games. Fake, 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 fake. I love that Ivan Reitman and company, with the levitation effect, they had to work with what they had, and they did a great job with that, and that looks 10 times more believable than any CGI effect, levitation effect I've ever seen in my goddamn life. It's pathetic, to be honest, that this is literally right in front of these Hollywood fuckers' faces. That, hey, these practical effects in these old movies, they aren't cheesy, they aren't corny, they're a lot more effective than your CGI and your green screen bullshit. But no, let's not do that. Let's continue to dupe the audiences. Let's continue to color tint our movies to make them look like they're blue and orange because it's some fucking color palette that is appealing to the human eye. Instead of making the movie look like a fucking normal movie, we gotta color it different colors. And we gotta have CGI backgrounds. And we gotta have people behind green screens. And we can't have CGI blood. We can't have real blood anymore. We gotta have CGI blood. We can't have... If we're gonna do ghosts, we can't do puppets. And we can't shoot it practically. We're gonna do it in CGI. It's just bullshit. I'm sorry. Nothing I've ever seen to me has proven that CGI should be having dominance over practical effects. Drop the fucking mic right here. It's bullshit. It's all of it is bullshit. Really is. So anyway, many sequences of the film were shot but removed from the film. A couple of the following were added as extras to the Criterion Laserdisc release. Several shots in the sequence where Venkman, Stans, and Sprankler are thrown off campus were cut. Good, they didn't need them. The sequence was good enough as it was. Several scenes throughout the film with Janine and Egon were cut. That's too bad. I heard about more scenes developing in the relationship. And sequences with Janine and Egon, especially this one scene in the film where, Janine is worried that Egon is going to die, that really hit me hard watching the film again, after how Ramis' death. I'm just worried, I'm a little bit psychic, and I'm just worried that you're going to die. And that's eerie now, because how Ramis has passed away, and it's hard to watch this. I admit, I cried. I teared up after that, because it's true, he died. He really did die. And it's just basically just points out and where you're gonna die, and he did, and it's really it's really sad. It's a really tough scene to watch. But those two had good chemistry, and it's too bad that some of those scenes were cut out. And there was one where she gave him a coin for good luck for the last battle or whatever. The first time Venkman leaves Dana's apartment, he says to Lewis, "What a woman." Didn't need it. We already get that. We already get the gist of that. When he's all like going crazy over there. You ever tell you I'm madly in love with you? I was like, oh, get out of here. Really. Come on now. And then she left me. I was a jerk. I was the worst. She's not the first. It's like you are an odd. You are odd. So no kiss. Get out of here. The green Slimer ghost is discovered by two newlyweds at the Hotel Sedgwick. Also cut was a Ghostbuster inspection of the room. I'm glad, because that scene didn't work. I saw the lead scene in the DVD. It doesn't work at all. It feels like it's a different movie. The vibe doesn't work. It looks cheap. It just does not work in the film. I'm glad it was cut out. It's supposed to explain why Slimer, why the green ghost smells. There's a scene where a policeman tries to ticket the ectomobile, but the car won't let him. Doesn't belong in the movie, so the Ghostbusters car is haunted too. What is this, Herbie? Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd play two bums that witness Lewis being chased by the terror dog. Yeah, cut that out. I saw that scene, didn't work. It brought the film to a crashing halt. Could you be like, what the hell is Ray and Venkman doing? What are Ray and Peter doing playing bums? What? They're bums now? Did they lose their jobs? What? Yeah, it doesn't work. I didn't think it was particularly funny either. Ray and Winston inspect Fort Detmering, where Ray dresses in an old general's coat and falls asleep. When he awakes, sees a female ghost above his bed. This part of the sequence is kept and used in the montage in the middle of the film. I wish that was put back in. We can still have the sequence of the lady ghost in the montage, but it explains where they were before that scene where they're driving on the bridge, and they have that great scene, which I really love, where Winston has his recollection. They talk about revelations, and he talks about, did it ever occur to you, Ray? that maybe the reason why we've been so busy lately is because the dead have been rising from the grave. And then, it's like Revelations, and then Ray quotes Revelations, and then the sun became as black as sackcloth. I really love that scene. It's a great scene. The seas, became red with blood. Judgment Day. Judgment Day. I don't know about you, man, but how about some music? And then the music that plays on that scene is badass, and they're driving across the bridge. I love that musical tune. It's just a great tune. Just love the dance too, and it's very pleasing to your ears. The other thing that's great about this movie, the soundtrack. Great soundtrack. You only have Ray Parker Jr.'s. That camera is messing up. It was the Bizarre Dolls, Ghostbusters. Will sound like the fucking
NES video game, Ghostbusters. What a shitty game that was, an NES game. Ray Parker Jr.'s, Ghostbusters. Classic song. Something strange in the neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! That song puts a smile on my face every time I hear it. It's just so fun, so much fun. So much fun. And other songs of the soundtrack are great. I love Saving the Day by Leslie. As soon as that first opening beat starts up, when the Ghostbusters, while they're in jail or they're getting sent to jail or they get out of jail, dun down, dun down, dun down, dun down, boom boom boom, dun down, dun down, dun down. I just love that bit, and of course the song itself isn't too bad, saving the day, saving the day. When it gets to the point when it's driving you insane, saving the day. Saving the day. I just love that. No, come on, let's run some red lights. I just love that song. Other good songs too, like I don't mind Laura Branigan's "Hot Night" that plays in the Louis Tully's dance party in one scene. You have Air Supply for some reason. And I also love Magic by Mick Smiley. The one that plays when the Firehouse, when the production grade is shut off and the ghost spirits, burst out of the top of it and start flowing towards Dana Barron's apartment. You have I believe it's magic, magic, believe it's magic, magic, magic. Really, really ethereal sounding song, really well done by Mick Smiley. And then I also really like, of course, the late great Elmer Bernstein's score for the movie. It's great too. You have the Dana Barrett's theme, you have the main theme, the themes that are used throughout the film are great and wonderful. Yeah, just great score, great soundtrack. There's another thing that's great about this movie. So in that scene at Fort Dempering, I would have liked to have seen that. I've seen pictures of that in my storybook that I have in the movie. Lewis encounters two muggers during Central Park during the ghost montage that was cut out. We didn't need that. Venkman stands and discusses matters with his mayor outside City Hall. I don't know what else it would have been. And then the State of Marshall main sequence ends with his large hat falling on the ground. And some deleted shots appear in the film's trailers. I'm glad the sequence didn't end like that. I saw the deleted scene and the hat falling on the ground. It looked cheap. It looked really bad. But anyway, yeah, that's a little bit of the deleted scenes. Coincidentally, with a movie about ghosts and ghost busting, the filming of the jail scene was actually a prison reported to be haunted, and the dailies had many scratches all over them with no apparent physical cause. Spooky. Ivan Reitman was concerned about returning there, but the crew was very relieved to find enough footage to complete the scene without returning. Thought that was an interesting bit of trivia there. Although never referred to in the script, the green ghost that the guys bust in the hotel was dubbed Onion Head by the crew because of its horrid smell. A scene where the ghost haunts two newlyweds showed this characteristic, but it was cut. Since it was never referred to in the movie, the writers of the animated show came up with a different name for the green ghost, Slimer. So the ghost was never known as Slimer from the very beginning. It was the show, the cartoon, Real Ghostbusters, that came up with the name Slimer. And also, the term proton pack was never used in this movie either. You just had the scene where it's like each one of us is wearing, yeah. Problem is, each one of us is wearing an unlicensed nuclear accelerator on his back, and that's as far as you got the explanation of what the proton packs were. You didn't hear them referred to as proton packs until Ghostbusters 2. And since Ghostbusters 2 was made the same time when Real Ghostbusters had already aired, I think Proton Pack was created by the Real Ghostbusters creators as well. The term Proton Pack, anyway. Not the Proton Pack itself, just the name Proton Pack. The schedule for getting the movie into theaters for its scheduled release date in the summer of 1984 was so tight that Ivan Reitman said that the final print included incomplete special effects shots and errors like wires showing, but remarkably people didn't care. That's a testament to how great the film is. Even when the film came out in theaters, it had errors and you could see shit and problems with it. You could nitpick, but you never chose to nitpick them because you had so much fun watching the movie. I kind of point this, similarity to this sort of issue that this film has with supposedly errors with the way that it's, put together with matte shots and strings and shit and stuff that you're supposed to, very noticeable, but you never notice it, is the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie. The 1990 live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. I saw some online people showing all these goofs and these pictures of seeing the puppeteers and shit, and it's very obvious, and how can you not notice it? I never noticed it, and I still haven't noticed it to this day. I've watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles over and over again, and I've still never once seen anybody, any behind-the-scenes puppeteer guy, anywhere in the goddamn movie, because I'm not looking for it, and I don't choose to look for it, because I'm having such a good time, and I'm immersed in the film. I'm buying the illusion, and that's what happens with Ghostbusters. I'm buying the illusion so much and having such a good time that I could care less if there are some obvious goofs in the film, because I'm not looking for them. When you have a movie that's a piece of shit, I'm going to notice the boom mic or some shit like that. But when a movie is good and I'm involved in it and I'm really enjoying myself, I could care less. So this film's a prime example of that, and so is the 1990 Ninja Turtle movie. So for the test screening of Ghostbusters, half of the ghost effects are missing, not yet being completed by the production team. So the audience response was still enthusiastic, though. And the ghost elements were completed for the official theatrical release shortly thereafter. Once again, another testament to how great this film is. In its test screening, ghost effects weren't finished, and people still love the hell out of it. It's a great movie. The producers knew they had a hit on their hands if they had all these problems in the screening, and people would still love the hell out of it. Like I said, perfect storm of casting, writing, directing, music, editing, everything came together at the perfect time and just created an iconic, epic movie. And, that's just a rare occurrence. It's rare to see a ghost in real life. It's a rare occurrence to see a great film like this, too. Especially nowadays. So anyway, scenes in the montage sequence of the Ghostbusters running around New York and driving around the ectomobile were done on the first day, largely without film permits. In one scene, someone who looks like they might be a security guard begins chasing after them, and Dan Aykroyd can actually be seen driving the ectomobile. So that's interesting a little bit. So they shot that scene illegally because New York permits are so expensive. And that montage sequence is one of my all-time favorite montage sequences of all time on film. I could watch that montage sequence repeated in a loop for an hour and a half and still have a blast. That's how much I love that montage sequence. I love the way it's set up, the music, of course. I love the way that you have all these different interviews, all these different shots and different things. They went to different places to catch ghosts. I love the way they put the magazine covers on the screen. I love where we have TV news reporters. I love where you have the whole thing, we're ready to believe you. I love all this. It's just like I said, it's just great. It's great. The montage sequence is fantastic. One of the best on film. I'm sure this is a question that everybody's wanted to ask, and I thought you were the perfect one to ask it. How is Elvis? And what is he doing lately? This is great stuff. I remember an old yarn that my mother used to tell around a campfire about a spectral locomotive that used to screen across the... So, yeah, I love the hell out of that montage scene. So, just like I love this movie. It's just so much fun, just like this film. It's just fun. That's the reason why I love this movie so much. I love Ghostbusters because it's so much fun to watch. I want to be like, Winston at the end of the movie where he's like, I love this town. I want to be like, I love this movie. I love this movie. It's so much fun. I love it. Great. There was an even more ferocious version of the librarian puppet that was going to be used, but it was rejected. However, it was recycled and used in another successful Columbia Pictures film, which was also a horror comedy, released 1 year after this one, Fright Night. It's great that, the two, one of those movies, you have Ghostbusters puppet ends up in Fright Night. Sadly, though, Fright Night does not get the respect that this gets on DVD, which is bullshit. Fright Night deserves better DVD. I like Ghostbusters better than Fright Night, but Fright Night's still a damn good movie and deserves better treatment on DVD. No features, whatever, at all, and it was a success. It just doesn't make any sense. Early publicity for the film was a teaser campaign featuring the No Ghost logo, and as the campaign built, the Ectomobile was also driven around the streets of Manhattan. No Ghost logo, one of the most iconic. That's an iconic logo by itself. That's iconic by itself. That's a great logo. That's great advertising. I love this. I love that logo. Could have sold the movie just with that. And the Ectomobile was originally, and then to have the Ectomobile driving around Manhattan, man, I wish I was there to see that. And early publicity for the film was a teaser campaign. I'm repeating myself. Ugh. The Ectomobile was originally painted black until it was pointed out that most driving would be at night and the car would be difficult to see, so it was then repainted white. The Ectomobile is another thing that's iconic about this movie. It has an iconic car. So this movie not only is an iconic movie with iconic characters, with an iconic song, with an iconic logo, it also has an iconic car. This is, like I said, a perfect storm. A rare breed of film that has so many elements that work and are memorable and are iconic. How often does that happen? That's insane. In the middle of the film's initial release, to keep interest going, Ivan Reitman had a trailer run, which was basically the commercial for the Ghostbusters used in the movie, but with the 555 number replaced with a 1-800 number, allowing people to call it. People who called the number got a recorded message of Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd saying something to the effect of, "Hi, we're out catching ghosts right now." And they got 1,000 calls per hour, 24 hours a day for 6 weeks. That shows you the iconic, the how much people, the phenomenon that this movie became. The just call number, a 1-800 number for weeks, thousands of calls. It's great. It's great. So yeah, that's it for the backstory. Now talking about, and even while I was talking about the backstory, I pretty much talked about a lot about why I love it so much. But start with the cast and the crew. The director Ivan Reitman, my favorite film he's ever done. I did a great job with Straight Stripes earlier, and I really enjoyed that movie too. But Ghostbusters, I think it's his shining hour. It's his best film. And it just, like I said, it just blends so many great elements together. And the directing is so taut and well done and well shot. And he has a very genuine feel to capture these genuinely funny guys and able to capture their natural, funny, their natural spirit, their actual, comedic spirit, and actually capture it on film in the best possible light. And it helped that Ivan Reitman was already pretty much friends with half the cast, Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Harold Ramis. Probably Dan Aykroyd too. They probably striked a friendship as well. And Sigourney Weaver, so you have Ivan Reitman directed it. He also produced it. So that helped too, because then you didn't have any kind of, outside producer guy who was like, no, I don't like this. Like you have nowadays, some Hollywood producer guy who probably is there for the studio to make sure that the movie ends up being exactly what the studio wants it to be, not the other way around, what the creators of the film want it to be. Written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, who did a great job with the screenplay. The cast: Bill Murray is Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd is Ray Stantz, Sigourney Weaver is Dana Barrett. One of my favorite roles of hers. It's my second favorite role she's ever done, right next to Ripley. Harold Ramis as as Spangler, as Egon Spangler. Ernie Hudson as Winston Zeddemore. Rick Moranis as Louis Tully. Annie Potts as Janine. William Atherton as Walter Peck, one of the most memorable assholes of film in film history. Even the guy who plays the mayor, David Margulies, is memorable. The ballet model Slatvia Jovan is Gozer, very striking looking woman. She's very tall and imposing. Alice Drummond is the librarian. Jennifer Runyon is an ESP volunteer. She's a cute girl. Reginald Ville Johnson in an early role. The guy from Die Hard who would go on to help John McClane, and he would also be in Family Matters as a jail guard. So, and I guess also Ivan Reitman was not only the voice of Zool, but he was also the voice of Slimer as well. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, great cast, great crew. Like I said, they loved what they were doing and it showed on film. The plot. You have misfit parapsychologist Peter Venkman, Raymond Stans, Egon Spangler, and they're called to the New York Public Library after a series of apparent paranormal activities. They arrive, skeptical yet interested, and are surprised to encounter the ghost of a dead librarian. And unarmed and unprepared, they make a spontaneous attempt to capture her, but are frightened away when she transforms into a horrifying monster. I don't think they were trying to capture her. This is a Wikipedia description. They weren't trying to capture her. It was just randomness, where Ray's all like thinking of some plan. And I love this scene where, they see the books. I even love before they even see the books, when they interview the librarian and Bill Murray's all like, talking about, I'll just find the quote so I make sure I don't get this wrong. And I know in my other review I talked about a lot of quotes too, but this is such a quotable film. This is even named one of the most quotable movies of all time anyway. So I'm trying to find it. Here it is. Here's Venkman asking the librarian questions. Alice, I'm going to ask you a couple of standard questions, okay? Have you or any of your family been diagnosed schizophrenic, mentally incompetent? My uncle thought he was Saint Jerome. I call that a big yes. Are you habitually using drugs, stimulants, alcohol? No, just asking. Are you, Alice, menstruating right now? And then, as a kid, I never knew what menstruating was, but I just loved the library minister guy's reaction to that. I thought it was funny. He was like, what does that got to do with it? And then Dr. Bregman adds this memorable line, back off, man. I'm a scientist. So this is great shit. This is right from the beginning of the movie. And then they end up going into the library, and they go to check it out. And then you have the whole thing where they see the books stacked symmetrically. And you have this line, where Ray's like, symmetrical book stacking, just like the Philadelphia mass turbulence in 1947. And Venkman's like, you're right. No human being would stack books like this. And even when they're looking at the slime, like, ectoplasmic residue. And he's like, ew, oh. Venkman's reactions to the slime on his hands is funny. He cracks me up. Ew, wiping it on the books and shit. And then a bookcase falls over randomly, and then Ray and Peter just stare at each other blankly. They don't say a word. And then Peter's all like, has this ever happened to you before? No. Okay, just asking. Just wondering. This is the first time? This is totally had to be improvised. And then they see the ghost. And then Ray comes with a plan that, actually it's Venkman who goads him into coming with a plan. He grabs him by the ear. He's like, come here, Francine. Which, that might have been a reference to the fact that Dan Aykroyd was actually friends with Fran Drescher at the time. So maybe Bill Murray knew that and just ad-libbed that into the film. And then I love the scene where Egon, he's like, they're huddled up. And Egon's doing something on the calculator. And then Bill Murray spontaneously, it's totally ad-libbed. He's like, Egon's doing shit on the calculations. And Bill Murray knocks it out of his hand. He's like, stop that! Stop that! And then Ray comes up with a plan. And there's 2, 1, get her! Roar! They're like, ah! They run out of the library. And then afterwards, of course, Venkman's got to just rib Ray about it. He's just like, get her. That's your plan, Ray? Get her?
It's just so much fun to watch these guys, these genuine pals. You can tell they're friends. They totally have chemistry. People who said they didn't have chemistry in the reviews, I don't know what movie they were watching. So they have chemistry. They're having a blast with each other. You're having a blast watching them. And then, the whole thing was like, here's your Twinkie. You've earned it, Egon. You've earned it. And then, they get fired from the university. And then, Ray's like, forget Stanford and MIT now. They wouldn't touch us with a 10-meter counterprod. Now, first, I like the university. They give us, money and, everything, facilities. There's thing about universities. They respect results. Ray, for whatever reason, call it fate, call it karma, I believe we were destined to be thrown out of this dump. For what purpose? To go into business for ourselves. And then they come up with the idea to do the whole Ghostbusters thing. Egon talked about after they had the scene in the library that they might be a way to actually be able to trap a ghost. And so how much money is that going to cost? And they sell Ray's house. It's like, my mother sold me that house. My mother gave me that house. And then you have this line of dialogue, which really, I really liken this back to Sony right now with their bullshit, where Bill Murray's all like, the franchise rights alone will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams. I'm like, Sony right there. They're taking that advice to heart right now. Harold Ramis is dead. Bill Murray doesn't want to be in Ghostbusters 3. Winston Zeddemore, Ernie Hudson even said after Harold Ramis' death that Egon is dead, Harold Ramis is dead, Ghostbusters is dead. There's no need for Ghostbusters 3. We shouldn't do it. And Sony, directly after Harold Ramis' passing, has to do a message, like open conference and say shit like, well, it doesn't matter. Harold Ramis is dead, but Ghostbusters 3 is still happening. But of course they don't say it like that, but they basically say that. They say the thing, it's tragic, blah, 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 blah. Harold Ramis is passing, blah, blah, blah. But we're still going to do it anyway, pretty much. And that's a fucking disrespectful. And I wish Harold Ramis would come back as a zombie one night and just fucking beat the shit out of these fucking guys and Sony and tell them to stop disrespecting the Ghostbusters. Let me rest in peace. I don't want to be spitting in my grave thinking about your shitty Ghostbusters 3. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. Then, so then they end up going to the Firehouse, trying to find a place for the headquarters. I love this sequence because Dan Aykroyd just sells this childhood exuberance so well. He's like, look, they've got a pole! Sliding down the pole. And then he's all like, we should stay here. Sleep here. and we should check it out. And then ultimately, Peter asks Egon's opinion on the building. It's like, I think this building should be condemned. And then they end up basically, they buy it. We'll take it. And then you get introduced to Dana Barrett's character. She has that weird shit that goes on in the kitchen. The eggs start grilling, cooking by themselves on the counter. She opens the door and sees, this unearthly shit and hears a voice say, Zool. And at the longest time, I didn't know it even said Zool. I just thought it growled when I was a kid. I just thought it just growled at her. But anyway, she ends up being the first client. Before that, they're getting ready. They're fixing up the firehouse. They hire a receptionist, and Janine, and Ray finds a old ambulance to convert into the Ectomobile. And the whole scene where he tells Bill Murray about he starts driving up and he's like, hey, you can't park here. You can't park here. Hey, do you think that, it's too small? You think when people drive by, they're not going to see the sign? And I love it. It was like, hey, you can't park here. And he's like, if Ray starts telling him about what the damage is, how much it's going to cost to fix this thing up, this piece of junk ambulance up, and the look at Bill Murray's face is classy. He's just like, just look at his face. It's like, oh shit, this is going to cost a lot of money. And then I love how, with Janine. And then he says, like, don't look at me with those bug eyes. And then he walks away. And then he's like, oh, Janine, sorry about that whole bug eyes thing. It had to be improvised by Bill Murray. And then Dana becomes their first
client, talk to her, tells her about what's going. She tells them what's going on. Egon and Ray, or Egon snacking on some Cheez-Its, and Ray snacking with them, and they're coming to like, maybe we should go look on the, in the, the guidebook. I'll check Tobin's Spirit Guide. And that's another thing that's great about the film, is that the writing is so well done that when they're saying these kind of parapsychologist lingo, it sounds real and genuine. It sounds like they really know what they're doing. It doesn't sound like they're making shit up. It really does sound like they know what they're doing. And of course, Egon's building more relationship with Janine. Oh, do you like to read? It's like Prit is dead. And the whole thing where he's all like, do you have a hobby or something like that? I collect spores, molds, and fungus. So, and then of course, then I remember the scene where they're like hanging out and they're eating some Chinese food, and I just love the way that Dan Aykroyd says this line. And it's like, hey, you got any more petty cash? Or we should use some of that petty cash to take our new client out to dinner. It's like, this, my friends, this magnificent feast right here, my friends, presents the last of the petty cash. And then what happens is, they get one. Janine, we got one. And then they go to their first trial run at the Sedgwick Hotel and meet up with Slimer. And I like, there's fun lines of dialogue too, where they go in and, they're waiting for the elevator, and this guy's like, what are you guys, some kind of exterminators? Yeah. Some guy's big old cockroach up on 12. It's like, well, some cockroach. Yeah. Bite your head off, pal. Then Ray's like, going up? And then the guy's like, no, I'll take the next one. So they go in the elevator, a whole scene where like, yeah, each one of us is wearing a licensed nuclear accelerator on his back. Switch me on. And then they go in, and they just fuck up the cleaning lady's cart, and she's like, what? It's like, what the hell? What the hell? And then they go after Slimer. And I just love Egon's reactions. Harold Ramis, they're very genuine. Like, he's scared shitless. Like, he's looking at, when he first sees Slimer, he's like, holy fuck, shit, this is scary. And then, and I love the scene where he's like got the PKA meter on this butler guy, and he's like running in up and down him, and then he like pushes him, and the guy like moves a little bit like one of those bobby things. Like one of those punching, those punching bags, like the clown thing that was used in Turtles 2. And it's like he pushes him and he goes, woo. This is funny. And then they go in the ballroom. Improvising lines, plenty. I love this stuff where Peter Venkman's like, wait. I've always wanted to do this. Pulls the tablecloth out from underneath all the, dishes and candles and shit. And he's like, and the flowers are still standing. And then he goes in, and I love the stuff where, Egon goes crazy with the proton pack. He's like, just proton stream, blowing up some cake and shit, trying to get him a Slimer. And Slimer's long gone. He's still going with the proton pack. And Bateman's all like, whoa. Nice shooting, Tex. And then he stops the proton pack, of course. And then they capture Slimer, and love the reaction to it. They're all like, that wasn't so bad. Ugly little spud, isn't he? Of course, before they ended up getting, Venkman ended up getting slimed. And I love the reaction by Dan Aykroyd directly after he slimed. He's like, he slimed me. That's great! Actual physical contact! And then he goes in and tells Egon about it, and Egon's like, that's wonderful. Have him save a sample for me. Wait, somebody blows their nose and you want to keep it? This is great. So much fun. And then you have the thing that catches Slimer, busts the doors open. We came, we saw, we kicked its ass! And then, then of course they have these exuberant prices for the capture fees and everything, and the hotel's guy, that's ridiculous, $5,000, I won't pay it. Oh well, we can put it right back in there. Yeah, right, Mr. Stansby. Yep. It's like no, anything but that. Okay, all right. And then you get the montage sequence, which is a blast to watch. And then you get more stuff dealing with Dana Barrett and sort of a burgeoning relationship between her and Peter Venkman. Goes and checks out her house. The whole thing was like, I'm gonna go over to her house and check her out. I mean, go over to Jane and Dana's house, Barrett's apartment, and check it out. He goes in there, and I love. He starts playing the two highest keys on the piano, and he's like, "They hate this." And the whole thing is like, if Dana Barrett's even like, "Do you even know what you're doing with that thing?" He's like bringing some, equipment in there to look for ghosts or whatever, and he's like, "I think so." Why? And then she goes and tells him about, "Oh, that's the bedroom. Nothing ever happened in there. Nothing ever happened in there." And then Venkman's like, "That's a shame." So many funny moments. And then I always crack up at this moment. They go in the kitchen, and he opens the refrigerator, and he's like, "Oh my God. Look at all this junk food. You actually eat this?" It's like, no, none of that was there. There was this space, there was this thing, and it said Zool. I just love that scene. My God. Look at all this junk food. You actually eat this? It's funny. And then he starts acting, putting the moves on her, and she's not falling for it. No kiss. Sure, shoves his head out the door. And then Lewis has still got locked out of his room. It's funny because Louis Tully ends up becoming the keymaster, but he keeps getting locked out of his own fucking apartment. That's irony for you. And then, of course, then you get the whole shit dealing. Winston ends up getting hired. And he's like, "If you give me a steady paycheck, I'll believe anything we say." And then you have the whole stuff where the EPA guy shows up. I love that scene. Where, he's all like, Walter Peck. And being a whole another dickhead. I'm going to try to find that line. So I don't miss anything. It's a good scene. This one. "I'm Walter Peck from Environmental Protection Agency, 3rd District. Great. How's it going down there? Are you Peter Venkman?" "Yes. I'm Dr. Venkman." "Exactly what are you a doctor of, Mr. Venkman?" "Well, I have a PhD in parapsychology and psychology." "And now you catch ghosts?" "Yeah, you could say that." "And how many ghosts have you caught, Mr. Venkman?" "I'm not at liberty to say." "And where do you put these ghosts once you catch them?" "Into a storage facility." "And would this storage facility be located on these premises?" "Yes." "And may I see this storage facility?" "No." "And why not, Mr. Venkman?" "Because he did not use the magic word." "What is the magic word, Mr. Venkman?" "Please." "May I please see the storage facility, Mr. Venkman?" "Why do you want to see my storage facility?" "Because I'm curious. I want to know more about what you do here. Frankly, I've heard of a lot of wild stories in the media, and we want to assess any possibility of dangerous and possibly hazardous waste chemicals in your basement. Now, you either show me what is down there, or I come back with a court order." "You go get a court order, and I'll sue your ass for wrongful prosecution." "You can have it your way, Mr. Venkman." So I just love that exchange. It's great. Of course, earlier then too, Egon then talks about, there's something bad that's going to happen. Imagine a Twinkie, a giant Twinkie, and, Winston's like, "That's a big Twinkie." And, great stuff. And then, Bill Murray, Peter has a moment with Dana Barrett. He's got a date with her and eat and read, look at the Tobin Spirit Guide, and he spins around. And then Dana ends up getting possessed in a tense scene. He goes back to visit her. She's possessed. Zool's possessed her. And the whole, "Do you want this body?" I was like, is that a trick question? And I made a deal not to make out, not to do it with possessed people. and then of course, then you have Louis Tully has the party. It was like, okay, who brought the dog? And then that's the one part of the movie. The stop motion effects of the terror dog, they are pretty noticeable. But for the time being, in 1904, they're pretty good. But the terror dogs themselves, the practical effects ones that aren't stop motion, look real Like I said earlier in the CGI rant, no CGI effect I've ever seen comes close. They look like real terror dogs from hell. They look great in high definition, too. They really do. And I watched the movie again on the 4K rip, which I burned on DVD. But it's not really exactly 4K, because I don't have a 4K player, and I don't have a 4K Blu-ray. But it's still the best quality I've ever seen the film in, and the best it's ever looked and sounded. And it looks great. It sounds great. It's wonderful. And I'm glad I have it. I'm glad I burned that. So that's cool. But anyway, yeah, so that's the whole scene, you know. Okay, terror dog scene. But then he ends up, you know, the whole scene where he's, help me, let me in! And the whole fancy dinner restaurant, and everything stops at a halt for a second. They stare at him. He just slides against the window because he just got possessed by the terror dog. And then they just go back to talking and chatting and eating dinner. Because they're socialites. They don't give a shit about the lower class citizen. And then basically, you know, you have Louis Tully. He gets taken in by the Ghostbusters. He gets arrested. And the guy that he talks to a horse. You know, the guy who owns the horse is like, what an asshole. Because it says, like, the end is going to come for you all. You're going to burn in flames. It's like, what an asshole. And then he gets arrested. And they send him to the Ghostbusters and think he might be, you know, they might be able to handle him. And then, you know, Egon's gives the whole thing, like, we should not get these two together, the Keymaster, and, because Venkman calls Egon. And he's like, I got the Keymaster, you know, the Gatekeeper. He's like, you know, we should get these two together. And he's like, no, that would be bad. And then Walter Peck shows up with his court order. And he asks them to shut down the protection grid. And, of course, you know, Bill Murray's like, don't do it. Don't be an asshole. Don't be a jerk. Don't shut it off, man. Shut it off. Don't shut it off, man. Don't be an asshole. He tells the policeman, like, if he does that again, you can shoot him. Listen here, pencil neck. Don't tell me how to do my job. You know. It's like, don't shut it off. You shut it off, man. Don't do it, man. And it's like, shut it off. Shut it all off. And then the Con Ed guy shuts it off. And oh shit. Even Egon, I love the look. He doesn't even say a word. He's just like, get the fuck out of here. Look on his face is like, run. And then, you know, they start running. The protector grid goes down. And, you know, shit hits the fan. Firehouse, top of it blows open. Spirits flow out. And, you know, Slimer makes another appearance in a hot dog cart. This thing pops out of the subway and it goes, Wah! And then there's this scene where the spirit Trendle flows into a taxi cab and basically makes the taxi cab driver a corpse, living corpse. I always, as a kid, it was scary shit. Like, I always close my eyes, like, ah, like I knew the stream was coming. And I saw like the spread to the. As soon as I knew that the spirit tendril flew into the taxi cab, I knew it was coming. I always closed my eyes. But now, as an adult, it's not that bad. But it's still a great effect. It's still a great looking effect. It looks like a real zombie. And so then, of course, magic plays in the background. The spirit streams flow into Dana Barrett's apartment, blow it open. Ghostbusters in prison. I love the whole thing we're talking about, you know, the whole spectral alloy of the thing. Of course, before Ray and all the Ghostbusters are in prison, Ray and Winston have that scene, you know, where they talk about Judgment Day, which I really like. And then you have the whole thing, they're arrested. And, you know, Ray's talking about how, you know, you have the whole, you know, the guy who built this thing is a psycho, you know, built all this shit, you know, and let's see if we can find that line. Oh, here it is. Well, this is part of it. This is one part of the line. One part of the scene. I don't know if I can find the exact thing. Probably should. Oh, here it is. The architect's name was Ivo Shandor. I found it in the Tobin Spirit Guide. He was also a doctor. This is Egon. The architect's name was Ivo Shandor. I found it in the Tobin Spirit Guide. He was also a doctor. Performed a lot of unnecessary surgery. And then in 1920, he started a secret society. And this is like after Ray was telling Bill Murray, Peter Venkman, about what's going on with the building, really weird structure, build it to, maybe capture spirits, the spirit, spiritual energy. And, of course, I also forgot one of my favorite parts of the film. Going backwards, sorry, I have to. One of my favorite scenes, and it involves Egon, Harold Ramis, because he sold this scene so well. And after the explosion happens, in the firehouse, Peck's being an asshole, and he's all like, and this explosion is a direct result of it. And then I just love how Egon's reaction is like, your mother! This nerdy, you wouldn't think he'd hurt a fly. Now he's had enough. He's going to strangle this fucker's ass. So I love that scene. And then the whole sort of reference here where Ray's talking about what's going on in the building. Let's find it. There's so many quotes. So many great quotes in this movie. It's like, your girlfriend lives in the corner penthouse of Spook Central. And Venkman's like, she's not my girlfriend. I find her interesting because she's a client, and because she sleeps above her covers. 4 feet above her covers, she barks, she drools, she claws. Egon's like, it's not the girl, Peter, it's the building. And then Egon goes into the whole thing where he talks about, and this scene was really well done because you really did believe the seriousness of the situation where, Egon is talking about what is going on here. Like, this is some serious shit right now. And, trying to find it again. Sorry. Oh, here's the rest of this one. He was like, the architect's name was Ivo Shandor. I found it in Tobin's Spirit Guide. He was a doctor who was also a doctor. He performed a lot of unnecessary surgery. And then in 1920, he started a secret society. Let me guess, Gozer worshippers. Right. No study. After the First World War, Shandor decided the society was too sick to survive. And he wasn't alone. He had close to 1,000 followers when he died. They conducted rituals up on the roof, bizarre rituals, intended to bring about the end of the world. And now it looks like it might actually happen. And then I love how Venkman's like, so be good, for goodness sake. Whoa, somebody's coming. So this is great. Great scene, because it's a comedy, but that scene, things slow down, and it really does feel like, it's really serious. It's really gotten serious. And so then they end up getting taken to the mayor's office. For a great scene where Peck's being a dick, of course, and he was like, is this true? The mayor's like, is this true? Yeah, it's true. This man is no dick. This is so great. Then of course Atherton's like, I'm gonna kill you, and he's like, well, that's what I heard. Oh, so great. And then I love what he says. Of course, you have the whole scene where it's like, this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportions. What do you mean, biblical? What he means is Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff. Exactly. Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. River and seas boiling. 40 years of darkness. Earthquakes, volcanoes, the dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. So it's so great. And then I would just show this clips, but I don't want to copyright claim. And then you have this scene. I love what Venkman says here. This is how he convinces the mayor. Because Bill Murray just does a great job with delivering these lines. If I'm wrong, nothing happens. We go to jail. Peacefully, quietly. We'll enjoy it. But if I'm right, and we can stop this thing, Lenny, you will have saved the lives of millions of registered voters. I just love that scene. And then they, all right, let's do it. They get the proton packs. It's epic. They're getting back. People are cheering them, and you're cheering the Ghostbusters too. And they get back, in business. And they get the Ectomobile, which runs some red lights, saving the day. Is playing in the background. It's awesome. Gozer tries to send some earthquake to mess up the Ghostbusters. They survive. They want to play rough? All right, let's play rough. And I just love the way the music stings when they get up walking in the apartment. Little last riff of saving the day. Down, 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 ding, ding. Like, that song adds, like, badassness to these Ghostbusters. They're not just funny guys. They're badasses. And they go up the stairs. And, the whole scene was like, where are we? I think we're in the teens. Oh, remind me when we get to 22, 33. I'm going to throw up. And then, of course, then they get up there and they see Dana and Lewis get turned into terror dogs. Gozer shows up. And, of course, you have the awesome scene where he's all like, let's show this prehistoric bitch how we do things downtown. Throw it! Just so badass. Like, heat him up! Bang him hard! It's awesome. Awesome. And they think they neutralized it. And they find out, no, it's bad. Egon uses a PKA meter. Gozer starts speaking, like, choose the form of the destructor. And, Venkman's, of course, actually, before that was a great scene where Ray's all, like, basically tells Gozer, because, once again, Peter convinces Ray to go first. Peer pressure. Convinces him to go in and tell Gozer to go away. And that's what he did. Like, I order you to go back to the nearest dimension or some shit. And then Gozer's like, are you a god? And then, of course, Ray's like, no. Then die. That's like flying off the, And then I love Winston's line afterwards, which is great. It's like, Ray, next time when somebody asks you if you're a god, you say yes! And then, of course, after that, that's when they think they neutralized it. And then, choose the form of the destructor. And, of course, Venkman's like, all right, everybody, empty your heads, clear your heads, don't think of anything. If you think of J. Edgar Hoover will come in and destroy us. So just empty your heads. And then the choice has been made. So what? What choice? What? I didn't choose. Did you choose anything? No. Did you choose anything? No. I didn't choose anything. I didn't choose anything. Of course, there's Ray. He's like, I'm sorry. What? What did you do, Ray? I couldn't help it. It just popped in there. What? What just popped in there? And then Egon's actually the one that first sees the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So he's like, look. It's like, it's a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It literally is a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's great. It's hilarious. I've seen somebody's review online. They're saying, like, some kid probably who just saw it recently and thought, this is stupid, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It should have been something more imposing, intimidating. That's not the point. It's a joke. The movie's a comedy. Lighten up. And I always remember it. Steps in a church, and that's the last line. That's it. That's crossed the line. And Venkman's like, nobody steps in a church in my town. 3, 2, 1, roast them. It was so much fun. It's great. And then they huddle up, and Egon tells them about crossing the streams. So crossing the streams was bad. You're going to endanger our health, or endanger the health of our client, who was madly in love with me before she turned into a dog. And it's like, you said this thing going to explode at your kill us. It's like, not necessarily. There could be a very slim chance of survival. And I love Venkman's reaction. All right, let's do this. I love this plan. Let's do it. I'm glad to be a part of it. Let's do it. And Winston's all like, this job is sure as hell isn't worth $1,200. It was like $2,500 a year or some shit. Like, and then Stay Puft tries to smash him. And then they say their goodbyes. And this is another scene it's hard for me to watch knowing that Harold Ramis has passed with the whole thing. Where they see you on the other side, Ray. It's really too bad. And then cross the streams. They stop Gozer. Very awesome practical explosion where the top of the building blows up at 4 different explosions. Really cool. Save the day. Pet gets covered in marshmallows. They feel like the floor of a taxi cab. Dana Barrett's fine. She's not dead. Break her out of the burnt corpse of the terror dog. Find Lewis. You know, Winston, screams, "I love this town," and then the movie ends, and Ghostbusters by Ray Parker Jr. is in the background. Bill Murray smiling, waving, Sigourney Weaver smiling, you're smiling in the audience, and Slimer shows up again before the end credits, and you just want the movie's over, and you wish it wasn't over. You don't want it to be over. You wish it would never end, because it's that enjoyable of an experience, enjoyable of a film. Ghostbusters, excellent movie. I know it's almost 2 hours. Like I said, it's going to be a long, I love this movie. A review / retrospective. It deserves a long, in-depth review like this. This is a classic, iconic film. One of my all-time favorite movies, without a doubt, definitely in my top 5 of my all-time favorite films. And great, instantly quotable, great quotes, great plot, original idea, great casting, great directing, great writing, great music. Everything comes together to, just in my opinion, perfection in this movie. And the main thing I love about it is just so much fun. It's so much fun to watch, and that's one of the reasons why it's so well liked, so well loved, and so well remembered over the years, because it's just pure fun. It's pure fun at the movies, something that movies should be. This is what movies should be, in my opinion. Like Ghostbusters, entertaining. Movies are there to entertain you, to cheer you up on a rainy day. And this is a movie that I could watch anytime. It doesn't matter what mood I'm in, and it would make me feel good. It would cheer me up. I'd put a smile on my face. Make me laugh, put a smile on my face, have a good time. I could watch this movie over and over again, never get tired of it, because it's that much fun to watch. And I really don't know what to say about Ghostbusters. I've said pretty much everything there is to say. It's a great film. Like I said, I'm glad that fate intervened and everything, came to be the way that it did with this movie, and things didn't happen differently, and people and different actors were cast in different roles. Really glad that things happened the way that they did, because they did happen for a reason. They happened to create an iconic, great film that'll be enjoyed by generations for years to come. And even though Harold Ramis is no longer with us, he's here in our heart. He's here in our hearts. And his spirit will live on in this film and in all the other films that he's done. His spirit will live on in Ghostbusters, with what he's brought to the film, with the table, with his screenplay, with his work on the screenplay, and also with the job that he did as Egon. He'll never die. Spirits never die, in my opinion. They just live on. And his spirit will live on in this film. And definitely miss you, Harold Ramis. I sound a broken record, but I'll miss him. I'll miss him. I'll get him a nice fruit basket. No, that's kind of, but really, I do miss Harold Ramis. And if I could get him a nice fruit basket, for him to chow down on with some Cheez-Its and Twinkies in it, I'd do that. And I would do that willingly, because he deserves it. He deserves all the praise that he's gotten after he's passed. He deserved all the praise he got before he passed away. He's a great man, great actor, great writer, great director, and he will be missed. And this movie, like I said, his spirit will live on in it, and this is a film that will, continue to introduce people to Harold Ramis's legacy when they check it out. New generations will understand Harold Ramis's impact on film, thanks to this movie, and other films that he's directed and written as well. And anyway, what to say about Ghostbusters? Rate it 5 stars. You expect anything else? I don't find anything wrong with this movie. The effects are great for the time period. They don't bother me at all. The pacing is great. It's never boring. It's never dull. The comedy is excellent. It's not, laugh out loud at points, but it's still, you're laughing, you're chuckling, you're smiling. There's not a dull moment. Like I said, the sequences that need to be serious are serious and believably serious. The sequences that are funny are believably funny and genuinely funny. And that's what makes this film so great, is that it manages to make that balance between the two and does a great job with it, and makes it such a film that transcends beyond it's just, a stupid, dumb comedy. It's more than that. It's become a phenomenon. It's become a legacy. It's become an iconic film. And it deserves it. It deserves every bit of praise and every bit of legacy that it has built to this day. And no matter how shitty Ghostbusters 3 will be if it is made, still have Ghostbusters. Still have the original. The original supernatural spectacular. And this is a film that the tagline really was right. It is a spectacular movie. And I can't recommend it enough if you haven't seen it yet, which I cannot believe. And if you're not a fan of it, cool. But I'll never understand why. Because this is one of, it might be not only one of the best comedies ever made, you know, one of the best movies in the 1980s, I feel personally it's one of the best films ever made. Period. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching my review of Ghostbuster review / retrospective on Ghostbusters. And I'll see you guys later. See ya.